Every year, like at the start, there's always that shake-up of LCS.
Different rosters, different management, all sorts of players from all countries.
You've got these rookies coming in, you've got these veterans like mixing together on different teams, and it's just the most exciting part of the season.
We have the old Season 2 gods in LXH and Froggen. We have GBM coming over from Korea.
또 프로겐이나 인카네이션이나 뭐 다른 미드라이너들 전부 잘하고.
It's pretty exciting to work with all the new players. Everyone's been saying that Alvec's super good, and I'm excited to play against him and find out.
Immortals, it was really unexpected that they'll bring in Rainover and Huni. They're going to make a really, really strong roster.
I think TSM's change is crazy. They have Yellow Star and Sabenskirin, and then, yeah, Double Lift leaving CLG.
There's so many crazy roster changes and a lot of talent switching around in NA. All I want is to play against better players, and I think this split will be the most competitive split.
Welcome everyone to day 2 of the North American LCS Spring Split. We're bringing you 5 more matches live from the Battle Arena here in Los Angeles, where the fans are energized for another day of League of Legends. And you're getting a look outside with the studio, where the crowd was turning the hype up to an 11. And Freeze and Crumbs getting in some reps before they hit the stage to take on Energy. Alltech and GBM, they're headed to the stage just a short time ago. GBM a little camera shy, but he had a standout day yesterday, and we'll look to end the week 2-0. Now, we had our first look yesterday, but today will give us a better picture of the power of these teams. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson. Great to have you with us once again. And joining me on the analyst desk, we have Aiden Zyrene Moon, as per usual. And he may have retired from the game, but not from our hearts. It's our special guest, Marcus Dyrus Hill. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us, Dyrus.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, to start off our discussion, I want to get some quick first impressions of the teams as we saw them yesterday, starting with you, Dyrus.
So as expected, CLG looked strong in the macro game as always, even against TSM, although they did only have 2 weeks of practice. And one of the other teams that was expected was Immortals. They had a really, really flawless roster being put together, and seeing them play makes me really happy that Turtle did really well.
Yeah, and Immortals is a roster that has a lot of talent on it, but they were able to synergize relatively quickly. But then on the flip side, TSM has a roster full of talent, but it's still going to take them a while. Like you said, 2 weeks of practice, so their result is a little bit to be expected. But also I want to talk about Energy, because they're a team that actually, they had 2 subs and they still came out with a win. A lot of that was GBM's performance, though. All
right, well, to kind of close out that discussion, let's take a quick look at the boards to see how the teams are positioned after our first day of games. Bunched in the top half of the league with 1 win under their belt, it's CLG, Echo Fox, Immortals, Energy Esports, and Renegades. And in the bottom half, we have Cloud9, Team Dignitas, Impulse, Team Liquid, and TSM. We'll see how that continues to shake out, starting with our first game, Renegades versus Energy. And after that, Dignitas will go up against CLG. We'll conclude the day with Immortals versus Team Impulse. Now, of course, I want to come back to your point, Zyrene, about Energy and GBM specifically, kind of let you roll through that one a little bit longer. Longest games of the season, but GBM playing very well to ensure his team got a victory in the first game of the day.
Yeah, longest games of the season, of course. It's pretty much the first day of the season, but this is the longest opening day of any season that we've ever had in NA LCS. 42-minute long games, that's the average time. 42 minutes, 3 seconds, which is absolutely insane, because we were expecting this patch to be a little bit faster. We were expecting people to be able to push better, close out leads, but people seem really nervous on stage right now. They don't seem to be able to actually take those leads and then make those risky plays, right? That's how you close the game out, is you have to take some risks to do so.
And of course, one trend that emerged was that most of the old guard teams in TSM, Liquid, Dignitas, and Cloud9 came out with losses. Only CLG coming out with a win, and that's because they were forced to. Between TSM and CLG, one of them had to win, you know, and all the newer teams are actually the ones banking the wins in this very first week.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange because every established team, every brand that actually carried over lost. So there's a lot of fans out there today that are just like, come on, just pull for their team. But there's a new team that I want to talk about, and you mentioned it earlier, is Energy. Energy, they won despite fielding substitutes. And then GBM had magnificent plays. His laning phase was a little bit weak, but that's to be expected with a mid laner who has a substitute jungler that you've never worked with before. But he had 2 Baron steals, and he also came up with a great team fight on Victor, really showcasing that this is a guy who's contesting those top mid laners in NA.
All right, and Dyrus, I want to come to you because as an experienced player who's been on a team that's gone through many iterations of rosters, you can probably speak to the practice that goes into and those first couple weeks of actual games where the teams are still feeling each other out. What's the process like as a player as you're adjusting to the first couple weeks of actual play as opposed to scrims?
So before I go into that, I wanted to go back to the point of energy where we had Chris subbing for top lane, I think, or was it?
Yes, we had
Chris and Shrimp,
Shrimp.
Impact and Moon.
So from watching those games, it really showed that the laners were extremely strong, and even though there was some error by Shrimp in the jungle, the laners were able to, play out the game flawlessly and to the rest of the team fights, even though with the mistakes made by Shrimp. But yeah, practicing and going into the first week, it's just really, really hard because when you're on stage, it's like, oh boy, it's been so long. I'm so excited to play again. And finally you're there and it's like, dang, I messed up.
I do want to pick your brain a little bit because you've played against Impact multiple times. How much do you think he's going to change the face of this team coming in today?
So from my experience and from what I've heard from many players is that Impact brought so many things to a team. Like if his team didn't have Engage, he would bring Engage. And if he needed a carry threat, he would bring a carry threat. But he didn't have all the tools he needed on TIP. So by playing with GBM and bringing up Quan and the rest of the team to speed, I believe that they'll do really well.
Yeah, well, we'll find our first impressions of the full roster today. Now looking at Immortals, who had the fastest win of the day, in part to Wild Turtle looking dominant. I want to talk to you as a former teammate of Wild Turtle. He definitely looked a little bit more to form, and you have been a teammate of his through his ups and downs, his peaks and valleys, where we've praised him, we've condemned him for poor play. What is it like? What's the feeling you have when you watch him kind of find success, what looks to be success in the first game of the season on Immortals?
Wild Turtle is such a genuine and funny guy. It just makes me so happy to see him do really, really well. Because you can hardly ever really get mad at him, whether he gets caught out or not. He's just such a nice guy. So seeing him mesh really well with Huni, Pole Belter, everyone on his team is just really rewarding to watch. Whether they're going to be against TSM or any other of the teams, it's just exciting.
And Zyrene, that's kind of speaks to the interview that we had with Pole Belter yesterday, where he spoke about, Wild Turtle feeds off of positive energy. And you have to imagine that if you have Huni on your team, that there's no lack of positive energy flowing through those comms. Is that something that can be learned from, I guess, by the other teams when we talk about Dignitas needing to have to come together synergistically and, from a mentality standpoint in order to overcome maybe some of these more individually talented teams?
I think that it's something that Dignitas can adopt and try to have trust in each other. But I want to actually jump over to an example that they can learn from that's not just Immortals. I think Renegades, the team that's going to be coming up here in the first game of the day, has a lot of trust in each other, right? We saw a lot of missed shockwaves by Alex. We saw a lot of missed headbutt pulverizes by Remy, right? But they kept going for it. And it was like they were saying, you know what, it's your first game on stage. We're nervous, but I'm here for you. I'm going to back you up. Everybody makes mistakes. We're just going to be able to say, hey, next time you'll get them, right? And I think that's something that being positive actually adds something. Being negative towards your teammate and being like, why'd you screw that up?
Right.
Is going to just be detrimental. Don't bring people down, right?
And that's the exact kind of mentality you need to keep on going on. When a team loses, that really, really tests the team. And by getting together and being positive, that's the only way you can really get better.
I guess the true test for Renegades and Immortals will be if and when they are given their first loss. And of course, a lot of this, is rolling with the punches as a lot of changes have been made to the game. And we touched on a few of the noticeable changes to the game this season, but we asked the pros what new elements they think will have the biggest impact on the competitive scene. Take a look.
Everything basically changed. All the masteries, runes, new champions are coming out.
It happens every season. There's big meta changes that just swings how you have to win the game.
A lot of the top lane meta and the meta in general is balanced around the masteries right now. So not necessarily a certain type of champion. And so since Grasp of the Undying and Thunderlord's Decree are the two strongest mastery keys, you'll see champions that can utilize those really well.
I guess this Underlord mastery is so fun that no one can pick anything else right now, which is...
I think games will be a bit more explosive this year than any of the other seasons of LCS because of the increased death timers.
Yeah, the games just go so fast because the death timers are somewhat high and then the towers die extremely fast.
When somebody dies, like, you can do a lot of stuff with that death timer.
The kill means TSM get their outer turret here. They're going to continue the pressure, 25 more seconds.
Top lane has a lot of variety right now. You can either be playing a tank, a supportive role like Lulu or something like that, or even just a carry top lane like if you're a Riven.
TP into lane just isn't worth it anymore, or isn't as beneficial because teleport's on a 5-minute cooldown. It just changes the playstyle of top lane, and you have to play completely differently than before.
There's no teleport for Haunter, so he would have to walk up.
ADC's items got changed a little bit. That means they're a little bit stronger early game. We're still a strong late game, still have a decent mid game. And I think there's a lot more versatility now.
Season 5 was, at the very end, was kind of just like Kalista, Ashe, Sivir. Like, you actually couldn't play anything else that wasn't straight utility. This time around, you can still play those guys because they have their utility still, but then hyper carries and stronger dudes early game come out and shine and actually have a chance to do something.
Oh, wow! An overstep, a triple kill for Piglet!
For jungle and support, it's like really vital that, you know, you group together and get wards because there's no more green wards to be available for purchase.
It's really easy to deny the enemy vision right now. With one pink ward and the trinket, it will just speed up the pace of the game. You can just bait the objectives or provoke more fights, and it makes the game even more exciting, I think.
Down the Baron will heal back up. What a fight, straight to the middle.
Games end a lot faster now, and I really like it when games are more fast-paced and not drawn out.
I really enjoy this meta actually because if you fuck up, then you're gonna lose. And that's like a lot of pressure, but I'm really, really looking forward to something so like unforgiving. It's definitely in my like element.
Well, that's a lot of information coming from the pro players, and that, in my opinion, speaks to the diversity that we're seeing in the game. We've got AD carries as junglers, we've got AD carries in the mid lane, we've got AP carries in the top lane, Ryze, Lissandra, but as well as those high skill cap champions like Fiora still prevalent. But Dyrus, I want to come to you as an ex-pro, but still an expert on the game. What to you do you feel has been one of the biggest changes in the preseason coming into competitive?
So the first impressions of preseason was basically, oh wow, AD carries are so OP. Caitlyn does like 1,000 damage crit at like halfway into the game. Oh my gosh, she's broken. But as we moved on and, you know, kind of figured out the meta in terms of solo queue, you can kind of see AD carries like Caitlyn not really be as prominent as, you know, now it's like MF, Ezreal, and Corki, and Lucian. But one of the biggest things is that in the jungle, we see a marksman jungle, which is very, very rare. So, for example, we have Graves and Kindred. They're both very, very strong, you know, jungle picks. I don't know why. They just do a ton of damage, and they just bring a bunch of things to the team. But as you can see in a lot of these games where we see Elise, Rek'Sai, you know, all these CC junglers, they're still prominent because all of the early game where you know, 2 versus 1, you make plays, you tower dive, like all of that is still very relevant into snowballing the game. And that all really, really depends on how the players play, of course, in the first week of the LCS.
Yeah, and having those double AD carries helps you take those turrets very quickly, but also it means that the meta shifts a little bit, and now we're seeing things that kill AD carries. So like Lissandra's back to lock people up, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen a Zed yet, but I know that he's strong with Thunderlords as well against them.
Right, Champion Select just seems a little bit more directed now in terms of it really defines, it's dynamic and defines the play style that you're going to assume when you get into the game.
Exactly.
And it's not only the champion, it's also the mastery setup. The runes hasn't changed that much, but you know, Thunderlords, Feather, you know, Grasp of the Undying, on Gangplank top, you know.
Unkillable top laners now with crazy sustain.
Bandit, you just get free gold when you parlay someone.
Ridiculous. Well, we want to take advantage of Dyrus' experience, so today we're going to open up our Twitter question to you. Send in your questions by tweeting at LOL Esports and be sure to use the hashtag AskDyrus. Then keep it tuned here to get your learn on a little later in the show. Now, of course, it's time to throw it over to our dynamic duo at the caster desk to get us into our first match.